He accidentally entered the women's locker room, but the girls' reaction was totally unexpected. Chief Security Officer Finn Foster strode purposefully down the gleaming corridors of the interstellar diplomatic cruiser Nova Horizon. His keen eyes scanned for any signs of potential threats as dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered for a critical summit. The fate of billions rested on the success of these talks. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Finn's eye down a side passage. A shadowy figure ducked out of sight. His instincts on high alert, Finn quickly pursued, one hand on his sidearm. The safety of the ship and its VIPs was his responsibility. He couldn't let anything fall through the cracks. The figure stayed just ahead of him, darting around corners. Finn's heart pounded as he wondered if this was an assassin or saboteur. He had to stop them at all costs. Up ahead, the mystery person slipped through a doorway. Finn raced after them, bursting into the room with his weapon drawn, steeled for a confrontation. But he froze as shrieks of surprise filled the air. Finn's jaw dropped as he found himself standing in the middle of the women's locker room, surrounded by dozens of half-naked humanoid alien females of various colorful species. Lithe blue Azurians, statuesque golden Serenites, graceful violet Quintal. "Oh shit, I'm so sorry, Finn sputtered, lowering his gun and averting his eyes as he realized his blunder. Heat rose to his cheeks. Some security chief he was, barging in on a bunch of nude alien women. There was someone, I didn't mean to." "Well, hello there," a silky voice interrupted his stammering. A stunning Azurian with periwinkle skin and silver hair sauntered up to him, unabashedly naked. "You look like you could use some stress relief, handsome." "I'll say," giggled her magenta Serenite friend, slinking over to join her. "Protecting all us helpless females must be so hard. Why don't you let us help you unwind?" "We don't bite," added a violet Quintal beauty with mischief in her eyes. "Unless you want us to," Finn gulped, hardly believing this was happening. He knew he should just apologize and leave. But something about their exotic allure and playful manner made him hesitate. It had been a long time since he'd been with a woman, let alone 3 gorgeous alien girls. "I suppose I could use a break," he found himself saying, pulse quickening. "If you ladies insist." "Oh, we insist," the Azurian purred, taking his hand and leading him further into the locker room. "I'm Salara, by the way. This is Navina and Quella." "And you are?" Finn Foster, Chief of Security." He couldn't take his eyes off the tantalizing curves of the alien females as they guided him to a massage table in the corner. "Well, Chief Foster, prepare to have your mind blown," Navina winked, "and maybe some other things too." Quella helped him out of his uniform as Salara dimmed the lights. Stripped down to his boxers, Finn lay face down on the table, excitement building in his core. He still couldn't quite believe he was doing this, but the lady's skillful hands kneading the knots from his shoulders and back quickly drove away all hesitation. "Oh, you're so tense," Salara cooed, working her thumbs along his spine. "Let it all go." Navina started on his legs while Quella massaged his scalp and temples. Finn groaned in pleasure, surrendering to their ministrations. The stresses of his job melted away. As the massage continued, the girl's touches grew bolder. Fingertips grazed the waistband of his boxers, dipped teasingly beneath the fabric. Quella traced his ears, sending shivers through him. Salara's breast brushed his back as she leaned over him. Finn's arousal strained against the massage table. The scent of the female's lust perfumed the air, intoxicating. When Navina's hand accidentally cupped his hardness through his boxers, he let out an involuntary moan. "Oops," she giggled impishly. "Clumsy me. I think the chief is ready for phase 2. Quella smirked. "Agreed," Salara chimed. "On your back, stud." Hard hammering, Finn rolled over. The trio had shed what little remained of their clothes, 3 sets of voluptuous breasts, 3 glistening slits, all for him. It was every man's fantasy come to life. Quella hovered over him while Salara and Navina focused on his lower body. Quella's presence filled his senses as he responded to her touch. Skilled hands gave to pleasure him with gentle, rhythmic motions. Pleasure built to a fever pitch, the females expertly stoking his desire. Just when Finn neared the brink, they eased off, leaving him gasping. Over and over, they brought him to the edge, only to deny him release. "Please," Finn finally begged, pride crumbling. What was that, Chief? We couldn't quite hear you," Salara teased. "Please, I need to come. I'll do anything." "Anything?" Navina raised a brow. "How about you join us after the reception tonight? We'll show you the true meaning of interspecies cooperation." "Yes, God, yes," Finn panted, too far gone to think straight. "I promise." "Good boy," Quella purred. Then they were on him in earnest. Quella took control, while Solara and Navina followed in perfect harmony. Waves of overwhelming sensation coursed through Finn as the trio guided him to his peak. He trembled and shivered, releasing all his tension into the moment. Utterly spent, Finn collapsed back on the table as the girls looked at him with satisfied smiles. He'd never experienced anything so mind-blowing, and if he kept his promise, this was only the beginning. Just then, alarms blared through the ship. Finn jolted up, suddenly remembering his duties. If there was an emergency and he wasn't at his post, he scrambled back into his uniform. "I have to go, but I'll see you tonight, I swear." The trio blew him kisses as he bolted out the door, head spinning. What had he gotten himself into? Intrigue, danger, and the wildest sex of his life, apparently. Finn grinned. This was going to be one hell of a mission. Finn arrived at the bridge slightly out of breath, straightening his uniform. To his relief and embarrassment, he discovered the alarms were due to a sensor malfunction, not an actual threat. The crisis was already resolved. As he oversaw system repairs, Finn's mind kept wandering to his encounter with the alluring alien trio, Solara, Navina, and Quella. He still couldn't believe that had really happened, and they wanted to see him again tonight. Excitement warred with anxiety as he tried to figure out how to slip away unnoticed later. If anyone found out the chief of security was fraternizing with diplomats' daughters, it could spark a major scandal, maybe even an interstellar incident. Wait, daughters? In his distracted state, it took a moment for the realization to click. Those three gorgeous females who had rocked his world were the offspring of some of the most powerful leaders in the galaxy. Solara's periwinkle skin and silver hair. She had to be the Azurian Prime Minister's youngest. And Navina's magenta complexion marked her as the Serenite Empress's middle child, which meant Quella was… "Oh shit," Finn muttered, head spinning. What had he gotten himself into? He was supposed to be protecting these girls, not sleeping with them. The rest of his shift dragged by in a haze of lustful memories and growing unease. When he was finally relieved, Finn headed straight for his quarters for a cold shower, determined to get his head on straight. He had to shut this down before it went any further. But when he stepped out of the bathroom, towels slung low on his hips, he nearly jumped out of his skin. Solara, Navina, and Quella were perched on his bed, wearing filmy negligees that left very little to the imagination. "There you are, Chief," Navina purred, eyeing his damp, chiseled physique with undisguised hunger. "We were starting to think you'd forgotten about us." Look, about that," Finn stammered, trying valiantly to keep his eyes from roaming over their barely clad curves. "I don't think this is a good idea. You're the daughters of… We know who our parents are." Quella cut him off with an impish smile. "And frankly, that's half the fun, the delicious scandal of it all. Besides, we're all grown women," Solara added, slinking off the bed and sauntering over to him. "Fully capable of making our own choices. And we choose you, Finn Foster." Her lips found his in a searing kiss, demolishing his resistance. Finn groaned into her mouth as Navina and Quella joined them, their hands and mouths exploring his body until the towel fell away. "We want to share the true joys of our cultures with you," Navina breathed hotly against his neck. "The massage was only the beginning. Let us initiate you into the secret sensual arts of our worlds." Quella nibbled his earlobe. "There are so many delights we can introduce you to, techniques that will shatter your understanding of pleasure. You'll be reborn as a true master of ecstasy." Finn shivered, knowing he should refuse but craving everything they offered. His responsibilities, the potential consequences. It all seemed to fade away under the spell of their seduction. "I'm yours," he surrendered. "Teach me." Triumphant, feminine laughs caressed his skin as they led him to the bed. Solara pushed him down on his back, positioning herself beside him. "Lesson 1, she declared, a wicked gleam in her eye. "Before you can experience the peak of pleasure, you must prove your devotion and discipline. You must obey our every command, no matter how challenging or unconventional." Navina produced a silk blindfold, slipping it over his eyes. "You must rely on your other senses. Focus on what you feel, not what you see." Quella ran a feather-light touch down his chest. "You must endure the most exquisite temptations without losing control," she purred. "Only when we deem you ready will you be permitted release." Finn swallowed hard, already painfully aroused and eager to prove himself. "I won't let you down." Over the next hour, they subjected him to a sensual gauntlet that tested the limits of his willpower. Solara moved slowly, teasing him with light touches until he was trembling with anticipation, only to pull back at the last second. Navina dripped melted candle wax on his torso and laved away the delicious sting with her tongue. Quella stroked him with a feather, tracing maddening patterns on his most sensitive flesh. Through it all, Finn gritted his teeth and endured, focusing on his breathing, determined not to disappoint his alluring tutors. Sweat beaded his skin as his denied need built to unbearable levels. Still, he held out, body quivering. Finally, after a small eternity, Solara's voice purred in his ear. "You've done well, my pet. Now claim your reward." She embraced him fully, and his world exploded in a kaleidoscope of sensation. Wave after wave of sensation coursed through him as the trio brought him to the peak of overwhelming intensity. When it was over, Finn lay boneless and sated in a tangle of female limbs, more satisfied than he'd ever been in his life. But as he drifted off to sleep, one last thought floated through his blissed-out mind. This was only lesson one. What other unearthly delights did the alien beauties have in store for him? And how in the universe was he going to keep this a secret? Over the next few days, Finn found himself living a double life. By day, he was the consummate security professional, overseeing the safety of the Nova Horizon and its VIP passengers with cool efficiency. But by night, he surrendered himself to the sensual tutelage of Solara, Navina, and Quella, exploring the erotic arts of their worlds and reaching new heights of pleasure. It wasn't easy keeping his newfound personal life a secret, especially from his eagle-eyed superior officer, Commander Valen. The stern older woman had always run a tight ship, and lately she seemed to be paying extra attention to Finn, watching him with narrowed eyes whenever they crossed paths. "Foster!" she barked, cornering him in a corridor. "You've been distracted and unfocused recently. Don't think I haven't noticed you disappearing at odd hours. If I find out you're neglecting your duties for any reason, you'll be scrubbing plasma conduits for the rest of this mission. Am I clear?" "Yes, ma'am," Finn replied, standing at attention and hoping she couldn't see the guilty flush creeping up his neck. "It won't happen again, ma'am." Valen glared at him for a long moment before giving a curt nod and striding away. Finn sagged against the wall, heart pounding. That had been too close. He needed to be more careful. But it was hard to focus on discretion when every stolen moment with his alien lovers left him wanting more. They were insatiable in their desire to share their secrets with him, and he was an eager student. One night, Solara introduced him to an Azurian practice involving sonic vibrations and bioluminescent oils that left him a quivering, ecstatic mess. Another evening, Navina taught him a serenite technique for prolonging and intensifying climax using tantric breathing and strategic pressure points. And Quella showed him how the Quental used mild electrical currents to stimulate nerve endings in ways he'd never dreamed possible. Finn lost himself in their exotic passion, addicted to the thrill of discovery and the all-consuming pleasure they brought him. The stress of his job and the pressures of the diplomatic summit faded away when he was in their arms. But reality came crashing back in the most awkward way possible at the next formal reception. Finn was making his rounds of the grand ballroom, keeping a watchful eye on the mingling dignitaries, when he accidentally collided with a towering Azurian male in ornate robes. "Watch where you're going, human!" the alien sneered, his silver hair and periwinkle skin marking him as unmistakably Solara's father, Prime Minister Zoras. "My apologies, sir," Finn said quickly, offering a deferential bow. "I wasn't—" "Bah! You humans never look where you're planting your clumsy feet," Zoras interrupted dismissively. "It's a wonder your species made it to the stars at all." Finn bit back the retort that sprang to his lips, knowing he couldn't afford to offend such an important figure. But before he could slink away, a booming voice cut through the crowd. "You there, Earther!" A massive serenite with Navina's magenta coloring lumbered over, his bejeweled robes straining over his prodigious belly. "What is the meaning of this disrespect to the Azurian Prime Minister?" Finn's stomach dropped as he recognized Emperor Nazarak, Navina's notoriously short-tempered father. He opened his mouth to stammer out another apology, but Zoras waved a hand. "Never mind, Nazarak. These humans simply don't know their place. No point wasting our breath on this one." The two leaders shot Finn matching looks of disdain before turning away, leaving him red-faced and fuming. It took all his self-control not to fire back with a scathing retort about their precious daughters begging for his disrespectful human touch every night. Suddenly, a slender violet hand touched his arm. Quella stood beside him, her eyes sparkling with barely contained mirth. "I see you've met my father, Ambassador Quarren," she murmured, nodding to where a tall Quental male was deep in conversation with Zoras and Nazarak. "Don't take it personally. He's like that with everyone, even other Quental." Finn sighed, some of his anger draining away at her touch. I just hate feeling like I'm constantly one wrong move away from causing a diplomatic incident. Quella grinned impishly. Oh, I think we're a bit beyond that, don't you? Screwing the daughters of three of the most powerful men in the galaxy is pretty much the definition of diplomatic incident waiting to happen. Despite himself, Finn let out a snort of laughter. Trust Quella to find the absurd humor in the situation. She leaned in close, her breath tickling his ear. But just think how much more delicious it will be to make them eat their words when you win them over with your dashing charm and heroic deeds. We'll help, of course. By the time we're done with you, you'll have our fathers wrapped around your little finger. Finn raised an eyebrow at her. I thought the whole point was for them not to find out about us. Oh, they won't, Quella assured him airily. But that doesn't mean we can't build you up in their eyes anyway. Trust me, we have a plan. Just play along and try not to let them get under your skin too much. With a parting wink, she slipped back into the crowd, leaving Finn shaking his head in bemusement. What had he gotten himself into with these crazy, wonderful alien girls? He squared his shoulders and returned to his duties, determined to be the best damn security chief the Nova Horizon had ever seen. He'd show those haughty diplomats what humans were made of, and later he'd show their daughters his appreciation for their help in the best way he knew how. With any luck, they'd all be too exhausted for any more wild schemes afterwards. Somehow he doubted it, but he was definitely looking forward to finding out. Foster! My office, now! Finn suppressed a groan as Commander Valen's voice crackled over his comm. What had he done this time? He presented himself to his superior officer, standing at rigid attention. Valen eyed him critically for a moment before pushing a datapad across her desk. I'm assigning you to escort the diplomats' families on a tour of the ship today, she informed him briskly. The Nova Horizon is the pride of the fleet, and we want to show her off. I expect you to be the picture of professionalism. No screw-ups. Understood? Yes, ma'am, Finn replied, internally cursing his luck. A day spent corralling bored dignitaries and their spoiled offspring was not his idea of a good time. But orders were orders. He met the tour group in the observation lounge, pasting on his most genial smile. A dozen aliens of various species milled about, chattering amongst themselves. Finn spotted Zorus, Nazarak, and Quarren off to one side, their body language radiating impatience. And there, in the midst of the crowd, were Solara, Navina, and Quella. The girls caught his eye and smirked, a wicked gleam in their gazes. Finn's heart sank. This was going to be a very long day. He cleared his throat and launched into his prepared spiel, leading the group out of the lounge. Welcome aboard the Nova Horizon, ladies and gentle beings. As we make our way through the ship, please feel free to ask any questions you may have. Our first stop will be the hydroponics bay, where we grow all our own fresh produce. As he droned on, he could feel the girls' eyes on him, their stares practically burning holes in his back. He did his best to ignore them, keeping his tone professional and his gaze forward. But they weren't about to let him off that easy. As the group filed into the hydroponics bay, marveling at the lush greenery and burbling irrigation systems, Solara sidled up beside him. Fascinating, she purred, running a finger down his arm. I've always loved a man with a green thumb. Perhaps you could give me a private lesson in pollination techniques sometime. Finn nearly choked on his own tongue. He shot her a warning glare, but she merely winked and sashayed away, leaving him flustered and fighting down a blush. It only got worse from there. In the Zero-G gymnasium, Navina cornered him by the resistance pool, making a show of stretching languorously in her skin-tight swimsuit. Oh, Chief Foster? I seem to have pulled a muscle, she sighed, arching her back. Could you be a dear and help me work out the kink? I'm sure those strong hands of yours could do wonders. Finn gritted his teeth, all too aware of Emperor Nazarak glowering at him from across the room. I'm afraid I'm not qualified to give massages, ma'am, he ground out, but I'm sure one of our certified physical therapists would be happy to assist you. Navina pouted, but let him escape with a murmured promise to take him up on that massage later. Finn fled before anyone could notice his uncomfortably tight uniform pants. By the time they reached the observation deck at the end of the tour, Finn was a frazzled mess. The girls had spent the entire day finding new and creative ways to flirt with him, always just out of earshot of their fathers. He'd lost count of the accidental brushes against him, the suggestive comments whispered in passing, the heated looks sent his way. It was maddening, and more than a little arousing if he was being honest, but he couldn't afford to let his guard down, not with Valen's warning fresh in his mind and the diplomats watching his every move. As the group oohed and awed over the breathtaking view of the stars outside the massive viewport, Quella appeared at his elbow. Quite a sight, isn't it? she murmured, her eyes fixed not on the stellar panorama, but on him. Quella, Finn warned under his breath. I can't. Not here. Relax, she said, her voice low and soothing. I just wanted to tell you that you're doing great. Our fathers actually look impressed for once. Keep this up and you'll win them over in no time. Finn blinked, glancing over at the diplomats. Sure enough, Zorus, Nazarak, and Korin were observing him with something almost resembling approval. Huh, he said, surprised. Maybe there's something to this kill them with professionalism thing after all. Quella grinned. See, we told you we had a plan. Trust us, by the time this summit is over, you'll be the most popular human in the galaxy. She leaned in close, her lips brushing his ear. And then we'll celebrate in private. I have some new tricks I've been dying to try out on you. With that tantalizing promise, she glided away, leaving Finn half aroused and wholly determined to get through this tour without any more close calls. Somehow, he made it back to the observation lounge without incident, bidding the diplomats and their families a polite farewell. As soon as the last alien had filed out, he sagged against the wall, exhausted. A slow clap made him jerk upright again. Commander Valen stood in the doorway, a rare smile on her usually stern face. Well done, Foster, she said, sounding almost impressed. You handled that bunch better than I expected. Looks like you might have a future in diplomacy after all. Thank you, ma'am, Finn replied, standing a little taller. I do my best. Valen nodded. See that you keep it up. The Nova Horizon needs her chief of security at the top of his game, especially with all these VIPs aboard. Understood, ma'am. I won't let you down. As Valen strode off, Finn allowed himself a small grin. Maybe this crazy double life of his was starting to pay off after all. Now he just had to survive whatever new tricks Quella and the girls had in store for him tonight. But after today, he was pretty sure he could handle anything. Bring it on, he thought, already looking forward to his next lesson. Professionalism was all well and good, but a man had to have some fun too. And if that fun happened to come in the form of 3 gorgeous alien females, hell-bent on blowing his mind, well, who was he to complain? Still grinning, Finn set off for his quarters, a new spring in his step. The summit might be far from over, but he had a feeling things were definitely looking up. Finn had barely stepped into his quarters when he was ambushed by a flurry of colorful limbs and enthusiastic kisses. Silara, Navina, and Quella had apparently been lying in wait for him, and now they pounced, peppering him with affectionate nips and caresses as they dragged him further into the room. There's our star diplomat, Navina crowed, nuzzling his neck. We heard you were quite the hit on the tour today. Our fathers couldn't stop singing your praises at dinner, Quella added, her hands already working on the fastenings of his uniform. I think you've officially won them over? Finn grinned, feeling a flush of pride at their words. Well, I had some pretty great motivation to succeed, he said, pulling Silara close for a deep, lingering kiss. The Azurian beauty melted against him, her fingers tangling in his hair as she returned the kiss with fervor. When they finally broke apart, she smiled up at him, her eyes shining with warmth, and something deeper that made Finn's heart skip a beat. We wanted to celebrate your triumph, she murmured, her hands sliding down his chest, and reward you for being such a good boy today, despite all our teasing. I thought you'd never ask, Finn growled playfully, letting Quella and Navina tug him toward the bed. The girls had clearly been busy in his absence. The room was lit with softly glowing candles, and rose petals were strewn across the sheets. A bottle of sparkling wine rested in an ice bucket nearby, alongside a platter of exotic fruits and delicacies. But all those delightful details faded into insignificance as the girls shed their clothing and pulled him down into the bed with them. Finn lost himself in a haze of silken skin, eager hands and mouths, and pleasure beyond anything he'd ever known. They took their time with him, each female lavishing him with her own unique brand of sensual attention. Quella teased him with feather-light caresses and maddening licks along his body until he was quivering with need. Navina showed him the exquisite bliss of denial and reward, bringing him to the brink again and again, only to ease back at the last moment. And Silara worshipped every inch of his body with a single-minded devotion that stole his breath and made stars explode behind his eyelids. Finn gave as good as he got, using every trick they'd taught him over the past days to drive them wild. He reveled in their gasps and moans, in the slick heat of them, as he brought each female to shuddering exhilaration. But in the end, it was Silara he couldn't get enough of. As Quella and Navina dozed contentedly in the afterglow, Finn found himself wrapped around the Azurian beauty, still moving with her in a sensual, slow dance that seemed to last forever. "Solara," he breathed, cupping her face tenderly as he gazed into her eyes. I think I'm falling in love with you." The words tumbled out before he could stop them, his heart too full to hold them back any longer. For a moment, Solara looked stunned. Then her expression softened into a radiant smile. "Oh, Finn," she whispered, pulling him down for a sweet, lingering kiss. "I'm falling for you too. I never expected to feel this way about anyone, let alone a human, but you've captured my heart." Joy surged through Finn at her admission, followed by a sudden pang of uncertainty. "What about Quella and Navina?" he asked hesitantly. "I care for them too. I don't want to hurt anyone." Solara stroked his cheek, her touch soothing. "They'll understand," she assured him. "We all knew this was a temporary arrangement. They'll be happy for us, I promise." Finn let out a shaky breath, overwhelmed with relief and love for the incredible female in his arms. He opened his mouth to tell her just how much she meant to him, and then the world exploded. The ship rocked violently, alarms blaring as the lights flickered and died. Finn was thrown from the bed, Solara's scream ringing in his ears as he hit the floor hard. "Finn!" Quella and Navina were awake and terrified, clinging to each other in the sudden darkness. Ignoring the pain radiating through his body, Finn staggered to his feet, his training kicking in. "Stay here," he ordered, frantically pulling on his clothes. "I have to get to the bridge, find out what's happening." "Be careful," Solara cried, her eyes wide with fear. "Come back to me. Do you hear me?" Finn paused just long enough to pull her into a fierce embrace, pouring all his love and reassurance into the kiss. "I will," he vowed. "I promise." Then he was gone, racing through the chaos of the corridors as the ship shuddered and groaned around him. His heart pounded in his ears, adrenaline surging through his veins. He didn't know what fresh crisis had struck the Nova horizon, but he knew one thing for certain. He would do whatever it took to keep Solara and the others safe, no matter the cost, because he was Chief of Security Finn Foster, and he never left a job unfinished or a woman unloved. With grim determination, he burst onto the bridge, ready to face the unknown. The universe had thrown him the most unexpected of curveballs, but he was ready to knock this one out of the park, for the sake of the ship, for the sake of the summit, and for the sake of a certain periwinkle-skinned alien beauty who owned his very soul. It was time to show the galaxy what one love-struck human could do. Finn burst onto the bridge, his heart pounding in time with the wailing alarms. Commander Valen and her crew were a flurry of activity, their faces grim in the flickering emergency lights. "Report!" Finn barked, slipping into his role as Chief of Security. "We're under attack," Valen replied tersely, her fingers flying over her console. "A rogue faction opposed to the summit. They've breached our hull on Deck 7 and are making their way toward the diplomatic quarters." Finn's blood ran cold. Solara, Navina, and Quella were in those quarters, along with their families and the other delegates. He had to protect them at all costs. "I'm on it," he said, already moving toward the door. "Seal off Deck 7 and send a security team to meet me there. We'll cut them off before they reach their target." Valen nodded sharply, her eyes meeting his with a flash of understanding. "Go. And Finn, be careful." He gave her a tight smile, then sprinted from the bridge, his hand on his sidearm. As he raced through the corridors, dodging panicked crew members and sparking conduits, his mind raced with possibilities. Who was behind this attack? What did they hope to gain by sabotaging the summit? And why did he have a sinking feeling that he'd seen their leader before? The answer hit him like a punch to the gut as he skidded to a halt outside the diplomatic quarters. There, standing amid a group of heavily armed aliens, was the shadowy figure he chased into the women's locker room on that fateful day. "You," Finn growled, leveling his weapon at the figure. "I should have known you were up to no good." The figure laughed, a harsh, grating sound that set Finn's teeth on edge. Well, if it isn't the intrepid Chief Foster," he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "I must admit, I'm impressed you managed to put the pieces together. Pity it's too late to do you any good." "It's not too late to stop you," Finn retorted, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Surrender now, and I might just let you live." The figure scoffed. "You're in no position to make demands, human. In case you haven't noticed, we have you outnumbered and outgunned." It was true. Finn was alone, facing down at least a dozen armed insurgents. But he'd been in tighter spots before, and he had no intention of backing down. Not with Solara and the others counting on him. "Numbers aren't everything," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You're about to find out what one determined human can do. With that, he launched himself at the nearest attacker, firing as he went. The alien went down with a cry, but Finn was already moving, ducking and weaving as blaster bolts sizzled past his head. He took down 2 more insurgents with precise shots, then dove for cover behind a bulkhead as the rest opened fire. Heart pounding, he returned fire, trying to pick off his attackers one by one. But there were too many of them, and they had the advantage of numbers and position. Finn gritted his teeth as a blaster bolt grazed his shoulder, searing pain lancing through him. He couldn't keep this up much longer. Just as he was about to make a desperate last stand, a new sound reached his ears over the chaos of battle, a fierce, ululating war cry echoing from multiple throats. Finn risked a glance around the bulkhead and felt his jaw drop. Solara, Navina, and Quella were charging down the corridor, armed to the teeth and screaming like banshees. Behind them came a motley assortment of delegates and crew members, all brandishing weapons and looking ready for a fight. The insurgents faltered, clearly not expecting resistance from their would-be hostages. That moment of hesitation was all Finn needed. With a roar of his own, he leapt from cover, firing with renewed determination. His unexpected allies surged forward, engaging the attackers with a ferocity that took his breath away. Solara was a whirlwind of periwinkle fury, her blaster spitting death as she mowed down insurgents left and right. Navina and Quella fought back to back, their movements perfectly synchronized as they took on all comers. Even the diplomats were holding their own, using their environment to their advantage and working together to neutralize the threat. Finn felt a surge of pride as he watched them, these beings who had every reason to cower and hide, but instead chose to stand and fight. Together they pushed the insurgents back, forcing them to retreat down the corridor. Finn pursued, determined to end this once and for all. He caught up to the leader at a junction, the two of them squaring off in a tense standoff. "It's over," Finn panted, his weapon trained on the figure's heart. "Give it up!" The figure snarled, his eyes blazing with hatred. "Never! I'll die before I surrender to the likes of you." "That can be arranged," Finn growled, his finger tightening on the trigger. But before he could fire, a blaster bolt sizzled past his ear, striking the figure square in the chest. The insurgent leader crumpled, his eyes wide with shock. Finn whirled to see Solara standing behind him, her weapon still smoking. She met his gaze, her expression fierce and proud. "I told you I'd always have your back," she said, her voice ringing with emotion. "I love you, Finn Foster, and I'll fight by your side until the end." Finn's heart swelled, his own love for her threatening to overwhelm him. He pulled her into his arms, heedless of the chaos around them. "I love you too, Solara," he murmured against her hair, "more than anything in this universe." They clung to each other as the last of the insurgents were rounded up, the crisis finally averted. Finn knew there would be fallout from this, questions to answer and damage to repair. But for now, all that mattered was the female in his arms, and the knowledge that they had faced the worst the galaxy had to throw at them, and emerged victorious. Together, they could handle anything, and Finn couldn't wait to see what the future held. The aftermath of the attack was a whirlwind of activity. Security teams swarmed the ship, rounding up the last of the insurgents and assessing the damage. Medical staff tended to the wounded, while the crew worked to restore systems and calm panicked passengers. Through it all, Finn and Solara remained inseparable, their hands clasped tightly as they oversaw the cleanup efforts. Navina and Quella were never far away, offering support and the occasional teasing remark about the new couple's public displays of affection. "Get a room, you two," Navina laughed as she caught them stealing a kiss in a quiet corner. "Or better yet, don't. I want all the juicy details later." Finn just grinned, too happy to be embarrassed. "You're just jealous," he retorted, pulling Solara closer. "Not everyone can land a stud like me." Quella snorted. "Please, we had you first, remember? Solara's just getting our sloppy seconds." "Excuse me?" Solara mock glared at her friend. "I'll have you know that Finn is all mine now. You two will just have to find your own human boy toys." They all laughed, the banter a welcome relief from the stress of the past few hours. Finn marveled at how natural it felt, joking and teasing with these amazing females who had turned his life upside down in the best possible way. As the ship slowly returned to normal, the delegates gathered to assess the situation. Zorus, Nazarak, and Quarren were quick to praise Finn and their daughters for their bravery and quick thinking. "You have proven yourself a true hero, Chief Foster," Zorus declared, clapping Finn on the shoulder. "The Azurian people owe you a great debt." "As do the Serenites," Nazarak agreed, His usually stern face softened with gratitude. You protected our children and our interests with valor and skill. Corin nodded, his violet eyes gleaming with approval. The Quintal will not forget your service, Finn Foster. You have earned our respect and our friendship. Finn ducked his head, overwhelmed by the praise. I was just doing my job, he mumbled, feeling his cheeks heat. Solara squeezed his hand, her smile proud and adoring. He's too modest, she told the diplomats. Finn is the bravest, most honorable male I've ever known. I'm lucky to have him by my side. Her words sent a thrill through him, even as they sparked a sudden realization. He turned to face the diplomats, his expression serious. Speaking of having Solara by my side, he said, taking a deep breath. I know this may seem sudden, but the attack has made one thing very clear to me. Life is too short and unpredictable to waste time on doubts and fears. He turned to Solara, taking both her hands in his. Solara, I love you more than I ever thought possible. You're my partner, my equal, my everything. I can't imagine facing the future without you. Dropping to one knee, he gazed up at her, his heart in his eyes. Will you marry me? Solara's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide and shimmering with tears. For a moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Then she was in his arms, laughing and crying and peppering his face with kisses. Yes, she exclaimed, her voice ringing with joy. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. The room erupted in cheers and applause, the delegates and crew members alike sharing in the couple's happiness. Navina and Quella tackled them in a group hug, squealing with delight. We're going to be bridesmaids, right? Navina demanded, bouncing on her toes. I called dibs on planning the bachelorette party. Oh, no, you don't, Quella retorted, shoving her playfully. I'm the maid of honor, so I get to plan the party. You can be in charge of the bridal shower. As the girls bickered good-naturedly, Finn turned to the diplomats, suddenly nervous. I know I should have asked your permission first, he said, rubbing the back of his neck, but I just couldn't wait another moment. To his surprise, Zoris threw back his head and laughed. My boy, if you hadn't proposed, I would have done it for you. You've more than proven your worth, and it's clear that you and Solara are meant for each other. Nazarak and Corin nodded their agreement, their smiles wide and genuine. We could not ask for a better match for our daughter, Corin said, his voice thick with emotion. Welcome to the family, Finn Foster. As the congratulations and well wishes flowed, Finn held Solara close, marveling at the incredible turn his life had taken. To think it had all started with a chance encounter in a women's locker room. I guess I should be grateful for your terrible sense of direction. Solara teased, her eyes sparkling with mirth. If you hadn't stumbled into our lives, we might never have found each other. Finn grinned, kissing her soundly. Best wrong turn I ever made, he agreed, his heart full to bursting. And I can't wait to see where this crazy journey takes us next. Hand in hand, they turned to face their friends and family, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Together, they could handle anything. And to think it all started with a simple misunderstanding in a locker room. But then again, the greatest love stories often had the most unexpected beginnings. Finn wouldn't have it any other way.